All right.
Today is the 12th of August. The winds of change in the world keep blowing at a fantastic speed. A lot is going on, and Transition Protocol is here to provide you the facts that drive all of this that people do not necessarily see. Corporate media doesn't want you to see it. Their motivation is clear. Independent media lacks the access. We are privileged, honored to have the access, and we bring it to you with as much clarity as we can bring to the discussion. And I am joined by my very dear friends and colleagues, Pepe Escobar, globally recognized reporter Larry Johnson, globally recognized military analyst, if you like what we do, please hit the like and subscribe button. Go to our Substack channel for a very small fee of $5 a month. We will deliver all of this to you inside your mailbox twice a week. So go ahead, Pepe or
Yeah.
Larry.
Yeah.
And
I'll
I
go ahead
prefer
and
that Larry starts today.
yeah. I'll go ahead and start off. We're in some um, let's call them fascinating times. Despite belligerent threats from Donald Trump and continued disinformation from not just Donald Trump, but from members of his administration, such as Scott Bessent, um, the war with Iran is on hold, at least for now. In fact, it appears that Trump has convinced himself that Iran's economic situation is so dire, all they have to do is continue to apply pressure on that economy, and that it will force Iran to collapse. And along those lines, Scott Bessent said one of the most remarkably stupid things any Secretary of the Treasury could say, because he claimed, "Oh, that Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz, that's just short-lived. That's we're gonna build alternative pipelines that'll get all the oil out. Iran will have no control." And it's like, dude, don't you realize that 25% of the world's supply of liquid natural gas came out of the Persian Gulf? That's cut off. 40% between, or let's say between, I've heard two different numbers, but between 30 to 40% of the world's supply of helium, which is a critical ingredient for making computer chips and for sealing hard drives, that comes out of the Persian Gulf. Urea and sulfur, both critical ingredients in fertilizer, and then sulfur also involved with a number of other industrial processes, 30%, 30 to 35% of the global supply. And none of those four can be run through a pipeline. So yeah, build your pipeline, get the oil going out through a different location. If the Strait of Hormuz is still closed, or still, you fail to acknowledge that it's under the full control of Iran, Iran still holds major trump cards. So Iran's not in as precarious an economic position as the West likes to imagine. Because in fact, now they have both Russia and China, along with Pakistan, as full trading partners. The north route through the Caspian Sea, open. The east-west route through the old and new Silk Road, open. The trade routes from Pakistan's ports into Iran, open. So the notion that Iran is blockaded and can't be helped is just ridiculous. Now, this brings us to the whole issue of the Mecca deal. I call it the Middle East Treaty Organization, which you can then shorten to say "Me Too." It's the Me Too organization. So on paper, you've got Turkey brings the largest conventional military in the region. Pakistan brings an established nuclear power. Saudi Arabia brings the checkbook. They're that wealthy friend you have that buy you dinner and everything, but as far as doing anything practical or useful, they're useless. Other than the only thing the Saudis are good for is some money. and apart from the fact that they produce a lot of oil. Now, on the surface, um, I put a lot of importance in where the agreement was signed, because if this was just your normal government agreement, you sign it in Riyadh, capital. But that's not what they did. They signed it in Mecca. And this was to send them, I think this was to convey a message that this is an agreement among Muslims. Now, that said, they've supposedly vowed, hey, an attack on one is an attack on all. Well, you've had repeated attacks by Ansar Allah on Saudi Arabia, both prior to the signing of the Mecca agreement, the Me Too agreement, uh, when there was just a bilateral agreement between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, and now after all three signed, and each time in response to those Houthi attacks against Saudi Arabia, the answer from Turkey and from Pakistan was zip, nothing, silence, quiet, not reacting. So then you have to ask, well, who's it directed against? Now you could put, you could make the case, well, are they going to consider doing it against Iran? Well, Hakan Fidan, the foreign minister of Turkey, made pretty clear that no, Iran wasn't on the menu. So the potential is against Israel. But I do want to highlight a problem with Turkey, that in the last few days, they've been making basically threats against Russia, because Russia has shut down the ports in Odessa, Nikolaev, and the Black Sea for Ukraine. It's basically putting an economic strangulation on Ukraine. And now Turkey, in a moment of sudden, oh my God, Russia is interfering with shipping in the Black Sea. And Russia's looking at him saying, you didn't say a damn thing last year when our ships were being attacked. So basically, Russia's attitude towards Turkey is, shut up. We're going to protect ourselves, and if you don't like it, too damn bad. So Turkey has got to figure out whether it wants a confrontation with Russia or not, and to put that into context, an attack on one is an attack on all. Do we see then Pakistan and Saudi Arabia lining up to join forces with Turkey against Russia? I don't think so. I don't think they've got that kind of suicidal instinct. One final observation about sort of where the global picture is headed. So right now you've got Iran in control of the Strait of Hormuz, despite Donald Trump claiming, "Hey, it's open. We got control." It's not open. The U.S. does not have control. But we've seen on the whole Russia-Europe front a couple of interesting developments. One, the British military guys are reaching out to Russia saying, "Hey, you know what? We ought to be talking. Can we get back together and start having some conversations?" And the Russians are thinking, we'll think about it. But then yesterday, when Vladimir Putin was with the Russian fleet in the Pacific, he gave him permission. He said, you know what? All of those Europeans that have been harassing our ships over in the Atlantic, you've got complete green light. Take them on, take them out, stop them, occupy them. So we're going to see now this war that NATO's been waging against Russia enter into a whole new dimension, because you're going to see the Russian fleet in the Pacific stopping British ships, stopping French ships, stopping German ships, Spanish ships, Italian ships, and the Europeans are going to, what can they do about it? Write a strong letter of protest. Okay, sorry. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Thanks, Mr. Z. Okay, let me start on a completely different note
Yeah.
with my X-ray specs. And do you know why? Because I just came back from watching the eclipse here in Natostan, in the deep countryside, a few minutes away from my home. I walked to an open wheat field with drinks, of course. My wife and I, we watched the eclipse. We talked about the absolute irrelevance of this race compared to a phenomenal cosmic moment like this. And now I'm back here to talk to you about the Mecca deal. So this puts things in perspective, don't you think? When you are reduced to your infinitesimal relevance in the larger scheme of things. All right, being slightly less metaphysical and more elliptic. The deal, the Mecca deal, like Larry was discussing, there are zillions of interpretations of what is essentially a photo op, a signature by three leaders in front of Mecca with the requisite photo op of the three of them looking at Mecca through the looking glass, literally evoking Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll through the looking glass, because these are mirror images of reality. It's not reality itself. We are in right in the middle at the heart of an enormous play. And these are side actors in the larger play. Well, what do they plan to do with this Mecca exactly? Not Riyadh, not Islamabad, Mecca. So this means what? This means that the Ummah is right behind this deal? No, definitely not. The Ummah will be right behind a pact or a deal concerning Gaza, or to save Gaza from being annihilated, or to save Palestine from being exterminated by the death cult. But these minor actors, which theoretically belong to the Ummah, the best they can come up with is a photo op about a NATO 5 style Sunni deal. Is this going to be implemented? Hardly. Who will dictate or what will dictate what happens later on? Geography. And history is informed by geography. Is Turkey going to sacrifice their NATO STAN connections and the fact that they are the eastern arm of NATO to save Saudi Arabia if they start to get funky against Yemen again? No. Is Pakistan going to sacrifice their nuclear power status and their new credibility as mediators between Iran and the United States to save Saudi Arabia, the House of Saud, if they start to get funky against Yemen? No. So, what is this pact for? Is this a sort of a warning for a possible empire of chaos death cult alliance trying to hit Turkey, as the death cult itself already being broadcasting live? Our next enemy is Turkey, maybe. Is this against Iran? Definitely not. And complementing what Larry said, Hakan Fidan, the Turkish foreign minister, actually said on the record that Ankara talked to Tehran before the signing in Mecca. So the Iranians theoretically know what this is all about and maybe some of the fine print. And then there's something which is particularly relevant in geopolitical terms, which is Pakistan's ambiguity. For all practical purposes, anybody can interpret this as Pakistan extending its nuclear umbrella to both Turkey and Saudi Arabia. That's a quite plausible, possible, solid scenario. We don't know because nobody has read the fine print. Nobody has actually read the actual document establishing the Sunni style Mecca deal. The maximum of inside information that all of us have is this is about creating deterrence. But deterrence against who? So it's in the eyes of the beholder. And the beholders can be the whole global south or the whole planet for that matter. Okay, this Mecca pact is directed against who? Nobody really knows for sure. It gives a little bit of breathing room for the beleaguered House of Saud, which is always hedging, of course. They are dire straits. The Yemenis already told them directly and indirectly, if you start being funky against us, we're going to do a James Brown and, we got a brand new bag against you guys. Just like in the 60s, Motown, Atlantic Stocks, and the best of American music by black people in the US, by the way. Ah, yeah. So this is our new groove as Yemen. You're going to lose East West pipeline. You're going to lose Yambu. You're going to lose everything shipping north or south of the Red Sea. You're going to lose the Bab el Mandeb. You're going to lose all your oil wells. You're going to lose everything. So apparently, Saudi Arabia got the message. Is this pact going to influence in any way Ansarallah and the Yemeni armed forces? Once again, no. So we have this wonderful photo op. We have this fascinating interpretation that Pakistan, with minimal effort, gained extra credibility in West Asia as a whole, not only with Saudi Arabia and the rest of the GCC, but also with Turkey. But does that mean that this is a sort of NATO style alliance? Not really. Not really. It's we can call it theatrical deterrence as a headline for the whole thing. Well, before the eclipse and before our podcast, I was writing the first part of a long analysis about the new great game. I'm sure you all remember the original great game. Russian Empire, British Empire, late 19th century until very early, the early few years of the 20th, until 1904, 1905 maximum, when the Brits arrived in Tibet, thinking that they were going to find a Russian army. They found exactly 3 Russians in Lhasa. So that was more or less the end of the Great Game. But of course, MI6 never forgot the Great Game because they have instinctually a profound metaphysical hatred of all things Russian. So the new Great Game today is not only the Brits and the Americans and the Anglo-American elites against Russia, it's against 3 civilization states at the same time: Iran, Russia, and China. That's where we turn around, we do a non-ecliptical roundabout, and we come back once again to the Iran war. And we come back once again to the eclipsed Strait of Hormuz. Eclipsed for the Americans, not for the Iranians. Especially now when we have, as the most important main character in this play, none other than Mohsen Rezaei, who has 2 new jobs. First job, which is something that he had before, as commander of the IRGC, he was part of the Supreme National Security Council, but now he is the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council for the next stage of the Iranian resistance vis-a-vis the Americans. And the second job is the one that kills it. He is the personal representative of leader Moshtaba Khamenei. So if any of you read any tweet by Mohsen Rezaei on X, this means that this message or what he is saying is personally approved, have the stamp of approval of Supreme Leader Moshtaba Khamenei. Even before that, so this was an interview that Mohsen Rezaei gave to Iranian media last Saturday, before he was appointed as secretary of the Supreme National Security Council and before he became leader Moshtaba Khamenei's top man. So I'm going to read to all of you, and I got an excellent English translation from the Farsi original. And it's quite outstanding what he says about the Strait of Hormuz. So I'm going to read this to all of you because it's pertinent to our discussion. On the question of the Strait of Hormuz, Let them, the Americans, stop creating insecurity. Let them allow us, according to our own arrangements, to better assist world trade than in the past. Because it's not only our own security that matters to us, but also that of world trade. We act responsibly in the Strait of Hormuz. This means that we want to preserve our security, world security. So we therefore act in the Strait of Hormuz more responsibly than America. However, since they are creating insecurity, and he's referring to the American blockade, of course, they are preventing the strait from truly opening. As soon as they implement these clauses, and now he's referring to the MOU, the 5 clauses provided for in the preamble of the agreement, this is how Mohsen Rezaei refers to the MOU, which they had begun implementing for 3-4 days and then they abandoned, we will see in that the sign of a change in behavior. Until we have this sign of a change in behavior, the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed. So this brings us to the key question. Larry, Mr. Z, and all of you, our audience. Is there any evidence that there's going to be a change of behavior of the Americans vis-a-vis not only the Strait of Hormuz, but everything that they signed in the MOU and they decided not to do by blowing it up? And the answer, as you all know, is no. So this means what? That essentially this is another forever war? Quite possibly. Because there is absolutely no way that the Trump administration or even the next administration in the White House will comply with the Iranian demands, will fulfill the commitments that they signed, they Americans as well as Iranians, in the MOU, and simply they cannot admit that they have to give Iran its money back, not to mention relieve Iran of sanctions, some of them going back 47 years. It's politically impossible, geopolitically impossible, and imperially impossible for any of that to happen. So I'm sorry, because apparently I'm getting back to an ecliptical, an elliptical, or eclipsical turnaround, which tells us that this situation has no way out.
Yeah.
That there is no off ramp for this war.
Yeah. In
Guys,
fact,
is that it? Or am I under the influence of the obliterated sun up above?
no. I think you're on target. In fact, let me read the latest Truth Social post by Donald Trump, because it underscores both how he's looking at this situation with Iran and how delusional the man is. He wrote, quote, and this was just about 4 hours ago. So he posted it, about 4 hours ago. The USA has total control over the Strait of Hormuz. I think we will keep it. Our naval blockade is being called by everyone a wall of steel, and there is nothing Iran can do about it. They have no navy, they have no air force, their remaining soldiers are unpaid, the IRGC is decimated and fleeing, and their leadership is uncertain at best. They have no money, their country is shot. All they have is fake news and 300% inflation and getting worse. Iran is all talk and no action, the bully of the Middle East no longer. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. When I read those words, the word horse's ass springs to mind as far as the stupidity of Donald Trump. But so if the Strait of, so which is it? Is the Strait of Hormuz blockaded or is it open? Because Trump has said, hey, the U.S. has total control. So if the Strait of Hormuz is now shut down, that's not the fault of Iran, that's the fault of the United States. And as I mentioned earlier, with respect to the stupidity of Scott Bessent, they think this is all about oil. It's not all about oil. And again, the oil's not coming out. Only a fraction of it is getting out through Yanbu, and that's in question because of the Houthi efforts to shut down Saudi oil exports coming out of the Red Sea. But then the shortages of liquid natural gas, helium, urea, sulfur, these are having uh, very significant detrimental effects. I'll be diplomatic on the global economy. And that's not turning around anytime soon. So the longer that you've got this disruption in traffic coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, the greater the danger of not just a global recession. There already is a global recession taking place. It just the economic statistics where it's officially identified, they haven't caught up with what's going on the ground. Once they catch up, though, it'll then be the next shoe to drop will be the threat of global depression, not just recession, global depression. And the shortages of oil are real. The ability of countries in the past to have drawn upon strategic petroleum reserves to mitigate the effects, that's going to disappear as well. So all Trump's actions are doing now are exacerbating a global economic crisis.
Well,
Mr.
let
Z,
me,
you want
yeah,
to
let me add my comments that reflect the reporting that I receive, which is uh, uh, going to put a different light on what was mentioned by Pepe and Larry, and I completely and totally support that. Nothing that I'm going to say is going to be in any way different from their interpretation. I'm bringing just a different perspective. The perspective that I'm bringing comes from Islamabad. It comes from a view inside of Iran's Supreme Leader's office, which is again coming to me via Islamabad, and also through contacts that the senior Pakistani leadership has with Saudi Arabia and Turkey. And that is as following. Mohsen Rezaei obviously is a very influential figure, and his ascendancy has come to be viewed in Pakistan as a big plus for the Pakistan-Iran relationship. Uh, as soon as he came into power, Mohsen Naqvi, Pakistan's very significant political leader, went there, physically met him, had a long conversation, and then he also met with other Iranian leadership. And Mohsen Naqvi and the person who is the most important individual in Pakistan leadership, even though he's in the military, is Asim Munir. Everybody knows that. Mohsen Naqvi and Asim Munir are related. They have family ties, close family ties. Mohsen Naqvi also is a close relative of the most senior Shia cleric in Pakistan, and he is highly revered in Iran as well. This cleric, and he's also named Naqvi. His Allama Naqvi, and Iranian leadership has a lot of respect for him. So the fact that Mohsen Naqvi went and met uh, with Rezai right away, as soon as he came into power, and spent a lot of time with him, and then also talked to a bunch of Iranian leadership, came back to Pakistan, briefed everybody, and then soon to happen would be a delegation coming. I'm informed by led by Arakchi, could be coming within a couple of days, and then more important than that, next week by Galibaf, the second most important person in Iran. And he's bringing a big delegation, 21 member delegation, I'm told. And the fact that they are closely aligned with Pakistan in terms of a number of initiatives, I'm informed, this is based on information that I have, is that the progress between Iran and Pakistan, Iran and the United States, is not quite as visible as it needs to be, and that is by purpose and by design, because I'm informed, I'm told by people who know that both the United States and Pakistan view Israel, the death cult that we have called, correctly so, as being very actively against any relationship taking place between Iran, Pakistan, and the United States that leads to peace. I mean, this is obviously not something that people do not know about, but I'm told that now there is active intelligence saying that the global Zionist lobby is very actively engaged in trying to derail any progress. So therefore, the progress that is being made doesn't meet the eye of analysts like ourselves. And I'm also informed that progress is being made. I'm also informed that JD Vance's office is deeply involved. And I'm also informed that as early as next week, there is going to be an announcement that leads towards this progress, to be followed up with a indirect talks between Pakistan, Iran, United States, Pakistan as an intermediary, Qatar as a supporting actor, that would lead to a de-escalation of hostilities, that would lead to, in Iran's point of view, lasting peace. Iran is not interested in ending hostilities. They definitely do not want that to happen. Everybody should know that very clearly, that they are not interested in a quick deal. Everybody should know that they are capable of prolonging this as long as it is necessary, not weeks or months, as long as it is necessary, because Pakistan has opened up all of its channels to Iran. I mean, this is really, really significant. The port of Gawadar is opened, the overland route is open, the route through Balochistan is open, and there are deepening ties. So Iran is not in a hurry to come to a deal. China is fully behind Iran. And the Mecca Pact, even though what has been reported by my colleagues is totally accurate, but I'm informed, I mean, obviously, I'm telling you what I know, is that the relationship is deeper than what appears, and that the strategic ambiguity is very, very, very real. And none of these countries are going to be allowed to be threatened, existentially, that is. And there's going to be a lot of cooperation, intel sharing, military sharing, and economic cooperation as well. So my reporting is slightly different, casts a different light, and more hopeful that that there will be some accommodation that will come about in the coming days, not in the distant future, in the coming days. So that's what I have to say.
Well, Mr. Z, hopeful, no question about that. But we have to measure this hopefulness compared to, especially Mohsen Reza. This is the man now on. Everything that he says matters because it comes straight from leader Mustafa Khamenei. And that little snippet that I read to all of you, our audience, about his interview before his two new jobs, which puts him up there. In fact, he is now the second most powerful character in Iran. Kalibaf is number three now.
Yes,
So this is very, very
yes,
important. It's great that Galibaf may be visiting Islamabad at the top of a very hefty delegation probably next week. This trip was supposed to happen this week. We reported before, right? So it was slightly postponed, but the trip will probably happen. But once again, what Kalibaf will be discussing with the Pakistani leadership is essentially, is there any chance in heaven and hell to make the Americans understand that if they not, quoting Mohsen Rezaei himself, change their behavior, it's absolutely impossible to even start to dream of resumption of negotiations. And obviously, this does not depend exclusively on the work of the Pakistani mediators, with help from the Qataris, with help from the Omanis, maybe even indirect help from Turkey. and of course with China in the back. No, this depends on what goes on inside a very disorganized Trump administration with an absolutely incompetent Secretary of Forever Wars and a president that, as what Larry read about Trump's through social post speaks for itself. We don't even need to comment on that. Completely removed from POTUS, completely removed from reality. Is there anything that Pakistan has been years can do to change that? No, there is not, unfortunately. And that's the huge problem. And now, when you have a discombobulated president, now having to basically answer to some of Mohsen Rezai's tweets, he has his own X account, and he will be tweeting or publishing or Xing practically every day. And that means Trump is going to have to respond to words, deeds, and actions that are stamped by the supreme leader of Iran. Is he up to this task? Of course not. He won't even understand what Moshtaba will be trying to say via Mohsen Rezaei. So we enter once again into the vortex of the possibility of renewed negotiations, the goodwill of the Pakistani mediators, there's no doubt about that. Probably a little bit of goodwill from the Qataris, and yes, goodwill from the Omanis. Turkey, we don't know because they're always hedging. And of course, way back, at least Saudi Arabia shutting the hell up and don't interfere with anything. Is that enough for progress? Once again, unfortunately not. So the best we can hope is that this possible Galibaf visit to Pakistan, possibly next week, they will have some sort of Iran-style Hail Mary pass in terms of convincing the Americans that the only off-ramp for you, which precludes a total humiliation, is to go back to the table and discuss with us. But how to make the Americans understand that? And I leave the question open to both of you, Mr. Z and Larry.
Larry, why don't you go ahead?
No, I'll defer to you first.
I have to rely upon what I hear, obviously, gentlemen, because that is the source of my information. Yeah. And I trust that source. And more importantly, those guys are in the room having those talks. And I heard from somebody who was debriefed by Mohsen Naqvi. Very, very significant. And the debriefing says that Mohsen Rezaei, definitely number two guy, definitely speaking for Mujtaba Khamenei, definitely speaking for the leadership, very significantly in favor of Pakistan playing the role that it has played, which
But
is
that's
to
not the point, Mr. Z. I'm so sorry, but that's not the point. I'm sorry. I have to repeat what I just said. Even with the goodwill and the hard work of the Pakistani mediators, they promised to convince the Americans about all that. And
Yeah.
nobody on earth can do that.
Well, I was coming to that, Pepe, and their view is that they will outlast this toddler, this malignant toddler, who should be forced into his sandbox.
Yeah. Well, it's I understand that they may hope that, but I think they're not dealing with the same cards. Look, the issue here, we have no doubt about the authenticity or the reliability of the intelligence that you're getting, but Pepe and I are coming at it from the standpoint of what I'll call all source intelligence, because getting the perspective of how Pakistan sees it. This is like the old story of the 9 blind men and the elephant, each feeling a different part, and each is totally confident that the part that they're feeling is that reality, but it doesn't encompass the whole. And there clearly are some let's call it behind the scenes activities taking place. The question is Donald Trump positioning himself to be willing to make the concessions that Iran is demanding? Iran's positions with respect to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz are not suggestions. They're not negotiating positions that they can adjust. But they in fact are very firm positions from which Iran says it's not going to back down at all.
They are imperatives.
Yeah. And so from that standpoint, if you're in a quote negotiation, but the Iranian position is intractable. It's not up for discussion. It's not up for modification. It's not up for any changes. So that at that point, the one who's going to have to change and adjust here, if there is going to be, let's say what the solution is, that the strait is actually opened, then it's going to require concessions on the United States part. Now, one of the factors, as you saw in Trump, the statement I read from Trump, he genuinely believes this nonsense that Iran's economy is on the ropes. But as was pointed out by both of you, that the economic relationship with Pakistan is, that trade route is wide open. The trade route with China, east-west, over the new Silk Road, wide open. The trade route with Russia, north-south, wide open. So Iran is not cut off and isolated as it was 10 years ago when the JCPOA was still in effect. So the thing we need to keep our eye on is not so much what Iran and Pakistan are talking about. The real one to focus on is what is Pakistan and the United States? What is actually being said? Who is actually calling the shots? Is it J.D. Vance or is it Donald Trump? Right now, it appears to be Donald Trump. And as long as that's the case, I don't think there's any deal on the horizon.
What do you make of the impending complete disaster that is going to take place when the SPR, the Petroleum Reserve, hits rock bottom? It's very much near rock bottom already.
Yeah, there's still a few weeks left. They'll wait till their hair catches on fire to figure out if they have a fire extinguisher in the room.
I tend to agree with you that it might take that long, Larry. But I'm just reporting to you that the people who are talking to the Americans come back and say, well, they seem to be listening, they seem to be understanding, and that is mostly coming from J.D. Vance.
Yeah, and Vance.
This proves that Trump has no negotiating partners on the smashed table at the moment. These are J.D. Vance's people, right?
Correct.
Well,
I pressed to ask them, well, is it J.D. Vance or is it Trump? And they said, well, their visibility is only to J.D. Vance.
Well, that's considering that Tweedledee and Tweedledum are not part of the picture anymore. Call it progress.
That is for sure, because Iran refused to talk to them.
Refused to talk to those clowns. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely refused.
Yeah, let me close with one, which is going to be the determining point in all of this, and it is on the global economic crisis. There is in place right now a global shortage of kerosene, jet fuel, and diesel. It is global. And it's not a matter of that there's alternative sources of the sour crude needed to process and produce those fuels. It doesn't exist. It's been shut off. 20% of it's gone. And it's been gone now for 3 going on 4 months. So as a result of this, the price of diesel and aviation fuel, particularly in Asia, but also in Africa, and now starting in South America. It's going up. This is creating a global economic crisis. The food planning in the southern hemisphere, it begins the end of this month, first of next month, September. And where's the fertilizer that doesn't exist? So the global economic catastrophe that is looming over the world while Donald Trump continues to blockade the Strait of Hormuz and prevent the restoration of what we're talking about is the restoration of the chance that there can actually be oil and liquid natural gas. Because the other thing people fail to factor in is that the damage that has been done to the oil terminals, the liquid natural gas terminals, the other outlets for the urea, the sulfur, really there has been significant damage. And the question is, how quickly can it be repaired? And one of the things, there are two obstacles to that. The maintenance, the crews under contract to maintain and do repairs, they've left the region because of the danger. And the warehouses where they had those spare parts stored, they've been destroyed as a result of some of the attacks by Iran. So even if you had the personnel and the equipment, the ability to repair it is still in doubt. So this, if you will, the sideshow of the negotiations is ignoring the real tsunami that's going to sweep the world, and it's called an economic catastrophe.
Over to you, Pepe.
No. Let's wrap it up. Please wrap it up.
Okay. Well, this is our assessment as of right now, the 12th of August, and unfortunately is not a very optimistic one. And I defer to my friends and colleagues. They have great insight. I provided you my perspective, which is a different one. And if anything changes, we will be here as quickly as we know. Otherwise, we'll be here on Monday on our regular schedule with Larry, on Tuesday with Pepe, and on Wednesday, all three of us. So until that time, goodbye. Please support us. Go to our Substack channel for a $5 small fee a month. Twice a week, you will get this high quality briefing delivered inside your mailbox. So thank you very much. We appreciate your support, and we're going to come back if anything significant happens. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers. Thanks, everybody.